I wanted to get to one more conversation, and Hank doesn't want to get to this conversation, but so I put it off till the end, and now I'm just forced to go here, Henry. So my question is, has Sean Payton lost faith in Russell Wilson? And the reason I want to get here is obviously the blow up on the sideline, but the reason I want to get to this question specifically is Russ was asked this exact question after the game. What do you think he said?
I would guess no. No, I guess no. He still has faith in me.
Phrased a little bit differently. He said, yeah. I mean, so he was asked, does Sean still have faith in you? And he said, yeah. I mean, of course. I think the biggest thing is we're trying to score a touchdown there. I think we all want to score a touchdown. And then he just goes on to talk about that play and what happened there. But, of course, what else is he going to say?
Yeah. See, my thing with the whole thing is that, like, I don't think anything has changed in this relationship since before the season started.
Okay.
I think that every time, like, this conversation kind of comes up for whatever reason, in this case, because it's, like, the blow up on the sideline, it's like, wait, does Sean not like Russ? And I think my answer is the exact same as it's always been, which is that, like, I don't know, if there were just, like, 4 random NFL quarterbacks and Russ was one of them, and Sean got to choose which one he got to play with, I don't think it'd be Russ. I think he'd like somebody else better. I think that Russ's personality kind of bothers. I think the personalities in general just don't mesh well. I think that Sean is limited in what he can do with Russ. I think that they've kind of found some ways to like get around that. But I think that I haven't had like a new thought on like the Sean Russ situation since like August. And so, like, this happened. It's like, oh, no, like, Sean's mad at Russ. It's like, yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised that Sean's mad at Russ. Like, I can see why. Like, it just fits kind of my whole perception of the situation.
Yeah. Well, I brought up the sideline interaction, I guess, or kind of one-way interaction, I guess, from the Detroit game to Baldy specifically because it really is a non-story.
That's kind of where I'm at, yeah.
And when you're talking about being in the red zone and scoring touchdowns, it doesn't surprise me that Sean Payton, somebody who historically runs hot, got hot. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm not shocked by this. Like, Russ was just the guy in his way at that point.
Yeah.
I don't really think that that's the story here. I'm with you. I think their relationship is probably just like any relationship. I think in this situation, Sean Payton has obviously the more dominant personality, the bigger ego. And I think Sean knows that you have to earn my trust. Like, this is like any relationship. It's not just given, it's earned, right? Sean was a part of the media last year. He remembers talking Russell Wilson as a media member. I think it's why he so early on in this year decided that he wanted to kind of, I guess, shit talk Nate Hackett. And it was because he was trying to take some of the heat off of Russ because he knows even that it's not all Russ's fault, right? But at the end of the day, he doesn't trust Russ, but that's not because Russ isn't capable, I guess, of running his offense. He just hasn't seen it yet, right? And so I think in this first year, like, I'm not surprised that Russ's leash is short. I also am thinking about, do you guys remember when Drew Brees was out of practice during training camp?
Yeah.
Like, will that ever happen between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton? Fast forward, maybe Sean's coaching somewhere else in 10 years. Like, do you think Russ is stopping by? Like,
that's a great point.
And you know, maybe it will.
No,
who knows? Like, we don't know where this relationship is going. We don't know where this relationship is going, right? What I can tell you is just based off the statistics of a 34-year-old quarterback, now 35, I get that. But I was looking at Drew Brees' stats from his 34-year-old season. You can see how short Russ's leash is than Drew's was at that point in his career.
Man, that's a great point because I think everyone looks at, and myself included, they look at the stats of being, okay, well, what is Russ this year compared to last year?
Yeah.
It's not that hard to be better than last year, but comparing where Russ is and where Drew was, too, that's a really good point. And the whole time you were talking about trust and Russ, you know what I thought? Can't spell trust without Russ.
Well, you only need one S.
Depends on if you want to spell it right.
Roos, how would you?
You
What
guys,
would that be?
this is a random.
Yeah,
okay,
Russ.
speaking.
Well, it's not words. So you can really just pick it out. You're the first one to say it. You
Okay.
set the stage here.
Can I just tell you though, just on how this offense is running differently? Like currently, Russell Wilson is averaging 120 passing yards per game fewer than Drew Brees did when he was 34 years old. That 35 season.
So what is that? Like 60%?
Yeah.
Of what? Drew
Russ
was
is
doing?
averaging about like 200 yards a game.
Yep.
Drew was 320.
Wow. So less than wow.
Yeah. Russ will probably finish the season with 150 fewer passing attempts, not completions, 150 fewer passing attempts than Drew Brees had that same year.
Wow.
So
what year was this for?
This
for
was
Drew?
2013.
2013. Okay.
I'll double check that, but
Wow.
I'm 90% sure that was 2013.
No, that sounds about right.
34, yeah. So his 35-year-old season was 2013. He was an AP Offensive Player of the Year. He got 4 votes on that. He was a Pro Bowler. Like, he threw for over 5,100 yards. Like, just the way the offense, but that was how many years into their relationship?
Right.
Like, think of how much trust at that point
Yep.
Sean Payton had and Drew Brees being the conductor of his offense.
And like every offseason, you just change the roster a little bit to fit what you want more. Like you're just building and building and building. It's like, oh, wait, what if we got Alvin Kamara? It's like, oh, what if we got Jimmy Grant? Like there's just all those steps and steps and steps. And then you keep what you like and you change out what you don't. And so like after this season, who knows? Maybe they say like Cortland, it works. Jerry doesn't work.
Yeah.
Troutman doesn't work. Javon, running backs, they work. So we'll run back there. So they make that one change. And a new receiver comes in. It's like, oh, well, we kind of solved that. But we kind of don't like the run, and you just kind of slowly find what you want to be. So there is some of that.
And
like, even if like this worked, you'd expect next year to be even better. You expect the year after that to be even better.
Right.
I mean, I guess at some point you hit the age wall, I guess. But that's its own separation. So it does take some time to build those things.
Well, and I see Andre here. He's commenting like, "Hey, look, like that's not even a fair comparison. It's 10 years into the relationship.
Exactly.
It was 8, but that's exactly the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Is like the trust needs to build,
Right.
and you can't expect Sean Payton to just come in and be like, "Oh, here's my offensive playbook. Yeah, have at it, Russ.
Right.
Go cook."
Right. And
He's not going to do
that's-
that.
And that's what's so interesting about why this dynamic and why this question is so pressing, not on a week in to week out basis, because are they going to bench Russ for Jared Stidham this week? No, they're not
That'd be
going to.
crazy.
Right.
But what Sean didn't do for over a decade with Drew was make a drastic change. It was pieces around Drew for over a decade. Now there's a massive question this offseason. Are they going to make that massive change and change the quarterback situation? And not just change the quarterback situation and get a new quarterback, but have a massive dead cap that comes with it.
Totally.
And things like that. So my take on this situation is, Henry, I agree with you. My take hasn't changed since the moment Sean came here, but I don't think Sean ever had faith in Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
From the moment that he was brought here, in fact, from the opening press conference, he had the opportunity to say, I'm pretty sure there was a question asked, or he could have easily gone out of his way to say this of, man, look how appealing this job was. We got the richest owners in the NFL. George Payton, those were the two things he pointed to. He could have easily gone one step lower and said, and you got a franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson. And was there any question that Russ was a franchise quarterback with what they traded to give for him and what they gave him in a contract? No, there was no question that the Broncos had signed off on that. He could have easily gone that step. You think if he would have gone to Kansas City and had Patrick Mahomes, or he would have gone to even Los Angeles and had Justin Herbert, that he wouldn't have mentioned him and said, like, yeah, hell yeah, that's a selling point? I absolutely think so. Then we talked about all of the little slights that Sean gave Russ throughout the offseason. Oh, how was your dinner with Russ at the Super Bowl? Oh, well, it was great talking to Joe Montana. It's like, oh, well, that's not really what we were looking for. And the one thing you could point to is that USA Today article where he absolutely, as you said, shit on Hackett.
Yeah.
And in order to give Russ some credit, that's really one of the only things. And then on Monday, he did say he and Russ have a great relationship.
Right.
I'm not fully buying that.
So here's what I think about Sean Payton's trust in Russ. He trusts Russ to be the glass half full guy. I remember after the Bears game, he credited him and almost compared him to Drew Brees, saying, these are the kind of guys that are positive, they're upbeat, and they they see this opportunity to come back in a game where you're down, and they just lick their chops because they know that they can do it. Like, that's the kind of guy, that energy is contagious in a locker room. He's not sitting there saying, and then I'm going to have Russ go out there and throw for 350 yards.
Right.
I'm not going to have him go out there and throw the ball 35 times. Like, he's not saying that. He's like, he trusts Russ to be a positive locker room guy. He's not saying, oh, I trust him with my offense.
Right.
And I just think that that's the difference. And I think Sean could do things to help put Russ in better position. And don't make me talk about play action passing even more. Like, I have just exhausted myself on this topic on this podcast. But Russ's most successful years in Seattle, it was play action 30% of the time, minimum.
Yeah.
And it's not like that right now.
Yeah. It's
I
such
could
a
rant
good
about
point.
this forever.
I will say my thoughts on the contract have changed, like whether they bring him back. I can't remember exactly where I was before the season, whether it was like 70% one way or the other.
Since the start of the season.
I think in that way, well, they have changed, but I do think they're also back where they started. So because like at 1-5, you're like, oh, they're going and getting a new quarterback. Russ is going to be gone after this year. Whereas before the season, you're like, well, it's another whatever 37 million bucks to keep him for 2 more years, and those charges don't hit the cap until after he's gone anyway. So it's like a $35 million charge in 3 years if you want to keep him for the next 2 years. Like, it's a great deal for a starting quarterback. When you get to that point, you're like, well, you might as well just cut him. Now I'm back to where it was before, where it's like they could do it. They could not. Like, neither way would really surprise me at all.
So both are options.
Yeah. Like, if they say, like, we want to bring in another quarterback and, like, late first round, early second round, something, develop him, have him compete, might as well have Russ here for that. Like, just because we need to have a starter for competition. Like, because I don't think Sean would be willing to bottom out, obviously. Like, I don't think he would
He
never.
already bottomed out at 1-5.
Exactly. Like, I don't think he'd be willing to go into a season saying, like, oh, I hope my quarterbacks work.
Right. 100%. And that's what makes the next month and then 3 months so fascinating. We got 3 more really important games.
Yep.
Broncos playoff push potentially coming. And then also we've got the huge question after that, which we'll know the answer by the start of March.